Hello dear viewer, I completed my Reliquarian Kinetic Fusillade build, and what can I say, it's the best build I've ever played for sure. The main reason for this conclusion is the amazing clear speed that comes close to high-end bow builds, combined with ridiculous unconditional single target damage, while being quite tanky at the same time. According to Path of Building, this build easily reaches close to 40 million DPS against bosses. No gem swap, no conditional things like flask uptime or buffs. And I think this number isn't even correct, it's more for sure. As you can see in the background, clear speed is top notch. In fact, I leveled this chart to level 100, running tier 16 juiced breaches, and even though I carried an omen of amelioration, I didn't die even once. What I also really love is that the build is so well balanced, you can run whatever currency strategy you want, be it boss killing, breaches, essences or farming beasts. Whatever it is, you have the clear speed and single target damage to one-shot bosses easily. Of course you'll find the POB link in the description and a link to poe.ninja. If you're searching for another late league build, try it out. Let me quickly go over the features of the build and explain how and why it works. Main skill is Kinetic Fusillade, which requires less duration gem and mods to decrease the hover time of the projectiles until they start flying towards enemies. This also means there's an interaction between less duration and your attack speed. I don't want to go into this because it's explained very well in other Fusillade videos already. There's even a calculator. All in the description. Why Reliquarian? Why not Deadeye? Well, honestly, I didn't plan the build beforehand. I wanted to try Reliquarian and I'm glad I did. As a Reliquarian, I get reservation efficiency, more sacred wisps, which is a heavy damage increase, and a level 30 purity of elements for significantly reduced reservation. On top of this, the Forbidden Flame and Flash Jewels to get the Scion's Deadeye Ascendancy are very cheap. Tailwind, one more projectile and increased mark effect. It's amazing, really. And since the less duration cluster on the tree is near the Scion start, I think this build actually works best as Reliquarian. Let's look at the defensive stats of this build and at all items. The baseline for the build is Mageblood with 4 perfectly crafted flasks. They provide movement speed, attack speed, crit, evasion rating and additional elemental resistances. The build is CI, immune to chaos damage with 9000 energy shield and 35,000 evasion rating. 10% of physical damage is taken as chaos, so it's basically not taken at all. It's also an int-stacking build. I reached 1650 intelligence, but it's possible to get more. Let's start with the unique items. There's Time Clask, a very cheap ring. We only need it because of the 20% reduced skill effect duration. And then there's At Series Reflection. These days a very cheap unique, like a couple of chaos only. Intelligence, evasion rating, energy shield, resistances, and we are completely unaffected by curses. Even though it's a cheap unique, for this build it's perfect. The rare left ring has to be a dust ring because of the 15% reduced skill effect duration. Other than that, intelligence, energy shield and some damage. I crafted the gloves, body armor, helmet and boots using fracturing orbs. Usually I try to get as much intelligence as possible and then a lot of energy shield and other mods that are beneficial to the build. For example, like increased mana reservation efficiency. The amulet is a simplex amulet, very expensive crafting base, 20 divines. Only 3 mods possible, but they are twice as good. Very important for intelligence stacking. Especially the 2% increased damage per 15 intelligence. Lastly, the wand. This isn't even the best. A kinetic wand is best in slot, but very expensive, which is why I chose a prophecy wand. It even has better critical strike chance, but is slightly slower when it comes to attacks per second. The important part here is the synthesized implicit. Adds 1 to 6 lightning damage per 10 intelligence. Let's continue with the skill tree and jewels. In the Scion starting era, it's mandatory to get the duration cluster. There's also a cluster for crit and 3 jewel slots. Here I'm using a neat jewel combination. A lethal pride jewel adds strength to all small nodes, while transcendent flash jewels turn strength on unallocated passives into critical strike multiplier. Basically both jewels provide close to 100 crit multi. I'm also using an impossible escape jewel for the mind over matter area. The point is to get this node without wasting skill points, because of the 10% reduced skill effect duration. In the top area of the tree there's a self-crafted cluster jewel, intelligence and attributes with increased effect. And the forbidden flash and forbidden flame jewels I talked about earlier to get Deadeye. Other than that, crit and wand clusters, intelligence cluster, and then energy shield and reservation. There's another jewel bound by destiny. 15% increased intelligence if 2 crusader items are equipped. The left ring and amulet were both crusader items. On this side of the tree, CI, then very important Ghost Reaver, because we want to leech energy shield instead of life. For a little bit of tankiness, ghost dance to get ghost shrouds. And this mastery is very important, 1% increased evasion rating for every 10 intelligence. Accuracy mastery to gain accuracy based on intelligence. And the mark mastery, so that the marked enemy cannot deal critical strikes. Also takes 10% increased damage. Finally, the leech mastery, so that 5% of leech is instant. Since Kinetic Fusillade scales with the number of projectiles, I'm using a Thread of Hope. This way we can get multi-shot without wasting passives, and also penetration. Additionally, I allocated 30 intelligence and these 2 nodes that are simply very good. A bit of intelligence damage, crit and attack speed. Finally, let's take a look at the skill gems. Kinetic Fusillade with integrated returning projectile support, but it's very expensive. You can also use another imbued gem to increase single target damage. To increase the number of projectiles, greater volley support. Of course, summon Sacred Wisps because of the synergy with our Ascendancy, less duration as explained earlier. Then we use damage on full life support because we are CI, which means we are always on full life. And since we are dealing lightning damage exclusively, volatility support. Let's skip this block for a second. The auras, Grace and Wrath with Enlighten. Remember, we have Purity of Elements because of the Ascendancy. And as a travel skill, I use Lightning Warp. Spellslinger and Tornado, which is a combination you see on all projectile builds these days. The Sigil of Power is optional, but it gives you some extra damage in boss fights. And lastly, our Curse, or Mark, Sniper's Mark, with Mark on hit support and Enhance. I skipped the Race Spectre setup. Race Spectre with minion life support, meat shield and companionship. This basically makes the Spectre very tanky. Because of companionship support, the Spectre takes 15% of hit damage that would otherwise hit your character. To make it so that the Spectre is always close by, I use Convocation and Automation to trigger it on cooldown. The Spectre of my choice is a perfect Spirit of Fortune. It not only casts a Wrath aura, it also gives us Spirit's Blessing. Your lightning damage is lucky. A significant damage increase. Before ending the video, let's take a look at how expensive this build actually is. As I said earlier, I crafted the magic flasks and all rare items myself. Impossible to guesstimate how much currency I threw at these items. I think I was very unlucky with fracturing orbs, so I would maybe guess 50 divines or so. You can see the current prices for the uniques on the screen, and it adds up to 180 divines. 2/3 of this investment is of course Mageblood. If you don't know how to farm currency, I made a video about farming Alva temples and selling them. The strategy still works, is even better than at the time when I made the video, because these temples now sell for 500 chaos. Okay, thanks for watching and see you next time. Bye.